let us finish this topic, unit 2, and then start talking about PYQs. So, where were we yesterday? What was the last topic that I was discussing before internet got disrupted? Critiques, ठीक, critiques. The second critique that we are going to discuss against positivism, very important one, very important one. The name of the critique is critical theory. Critical theory. This theory, just to give you a brief introduction, because when we are reading these people, the people that I'm going to talk about, today I'll be talking about those people in isolation to the larger work that they have done. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is one single piece that is which they have written against positivism, which I'm going to discuss, although that is not what they are all about. They are more than that. However, since the topic is critique to positivism, so I'll touch upon only that aspect which is more relevant to address the critique against positivism. Critical theory was given by Adorno and Max Horkheimer. Adorno and Max Horkheimer. Now, what is their theory all about? Remember one thing, just remember this thing for the upcoming times. Karl Marx talked about revolutions, okay, economic upheavals, okay, something that I don't want to go deep into because you have not read Marx as of yet. The basic belief of Karl Marx was that the whole economic system that we are seeing around us is going to collapse, and after the after the collapse of this economic system, which is run on profit, okay, after the collapse of this economic system, we are going to have an egalitarian economic system. This economic system is running on profit. For example, you purchase iPhone 80,000. The worth is not 80,000. Worth is hardly 6,000 or 7,000. You purchase for 80,000. So why? Profit is the main motive. Okay, and they will make you buy it somehow. Otherwise, you will feel deprived. Okay, so profit is the main motive. But Marx believed tomorrow this whole system will collapse running on profit, and we will enter into an era where goods will be sold not for profit. Goods will be sold only for sustenance. Only for sustenance. No profit. Profitless economy. This is the basic idea of Karl Marx. How it will happen, when it will happen, we are not going into those details right now, okay, until we read Marx. Now, and this transition, according to Marx, was a revolution from profit driven system to sustenance driven system. This was a revolution which is inevitable, which will happen. The problem is, Russian Revolution happened, Chinese Revolution happened, but still, that kind of revolution that Marx had envisaged did not really materialize. That means, see, we often talk about failure of revolutions like Russian Revolution or Chinese Revolution. Although they talk about socialist, communist regimes, but they are not socialist or communist. in the Marxian sense. Okay, I just hope ज़्यादा difficult ना हो जाए, so I'll keep it very simple. Let me first show you something, then you will understand what critical theory is all about. The main objective of critical theory, remember, is to understand why revolutions never happened the way Marx thought it will happen. This was the main objective of critical theory. To understand why Marxian idea of communism never got established. This was the main objective of critical theory. And study this, only to study this, a research institution was established in Germany. It was called as Frankfurt School. Like, for example, we talk about London School of Economics, LE School of Economics. Okay. So, similarly, there was Frankfurt School, not of economics, but of social research. Okay. Basically, these schools are, why these schools become famous? Because they are doing advanced studies on the future aspects, how to make societies better or economies better. This is why they are called as schools. Okay. Frankfurt School or critical theory. These are one and the same thing. Frankfurt School. Critical theory. Okay. Now, let us try to understand why Marxian revolution never happened. In order to understand what they did, these guys fused fused Karl Marx and Sigmund Freud. They fused Karl Marx and Sigmund Freud together. Okay, इसको ध्यान रखना. They fused Freud and Marx together to understand why revolutions never happened. Okay, this was a big project. It was not so easy to fuse Sigmund Freud's theory of psychoanalysis with Marx's theory of economic determinism, and to see why revolutions are not happening the way Marx believed. This is very theoretical school. Now, what can you see before you? Genes, genes. ये वेरिएशन छोड़ो, जीन्स तो दिख ही रही है ना, जो दिख रहा है वही एम्पिरिसिज्म. जीन्स. ओके, let me tell you one very important thing. All these genes that you are seeing belong to different brand. All these genes are belonging to different brands. One is Calvin Klein, second is Levi's, third is Jack and Jones, fourth is G Star Raw. Okay, but our eyes cannot differentiate because they will look very similar. Okay, and then these people will say, एक बार टच करके देखो आप, मटेरियल देखो मटेरियल. ओके चलो, एनी हाउ वो सब छोड़ देते हैं. These are genes which are very similar, however an impression is maintained that they are different. Got it? Now tell me, what is this? Mobile phone. Mobile phone. Empiricism. Correct. Sense experience. All these, do you know, are different brands. All of them are different brands. But empiricism with sense experience, you will feel all of them are similar. And they will also make you believe why my phone is different from their हार्डकोर प्रोसेसर 8 पता नहीं गीगा हर्ट्स टेरा हर्ट्स ये वो सब DDR4 तुम्हारे काम का कुछ है नहीं तो भी ले लो. These two. Now the real critical theory begins. Now tell me, what is this? Marxism is going to get integrated with Freud. यही होएगा. अब तुम्हें समझ आएगा कि क्या निकलता है नतीजा जब मार्क्स और फ्रॉइड को मिक्स किया जाता है. ओके. What are these? Last picture was mobile. Second last picture was jeans. What are these? Singers, female singers. All of them are similar. All of them are similar. Their appearances will somehow be made unique to each one of you. Okay. But the range of music, the choice of music, the genre of music is very much similar. Even the lyrics and the kind of things which they describe in their music is also very similar. Somehow, what Adorno calls as pseudo-individualism or pseudo-individualization is developed amongst the masses. In the sense, they are portrayed as very unique individuals, just like that gene was portrayed as very unique. Buy it. You deserve it. Buy this mobile. You deserve it. Listen to this singer. He is very different from any other singers. Okay. यहां तक समझ गए. अब क्या फर्क है इन लोगों में? मेरे को तो आज तक समझ नहीं. And I'm going to tell you something which is very serious. Okay, this is very serious, which is very much related to your life also. These people, who are they? They are also singers, male singers. Last picture was female singers. These are male singers. They appeared, they try to appear very different from one another. However, this cannot conceal the fact that all of them belong to similar kind of genre, similar kind of music, similar kind of music videos as well, similar kind of things which they are describing in their music. Everything is very similar. Okay. However, they would try to project themselves very unique amongst the masses, pseudo individualization. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you something which is the main essence of critical theory. These were manufactured goods, right? Manufactured goods, this is how we call them as. Manufactured goods are coming from what? Assembly lines. ये jeans यहाँ पड़ी हुई है. This gene will go inside this apparatus which will spray something on this, and then final good will come out like this, or like this, or like this, or like this. But they are processed from the similar assembly line. Okay, similar assembly line. So is the case with this. They are also processed from assembly lines, mass production, industrial revolution. However, they are given unique arrangements. छोटे से स्क्रीन में 6.2 के इंच में खेलते रहते हैं, कभी यहाँ डाल देंगे, कभी कैमरा, कभी उधर, अगले साल उधर डाल देंगे, बोल देंगे नया आ गया, देखो आईफोन 13, अब देखो उसमें नॉच, पहले वाले में नॉच बड़ा था, अब छोटा कर रहे हैं, देखो यूनिक. Now, those were manufactured goods coming out from manufacturing industry, and these are cultural goods coming out from cultural industry. Cultural goods coming out from cultural industry. Now, what is cultural industry? अभी बताते हैं. यहां तक क्लियर होना चाहिए पहले, ठीक है. Those were manufactured goods coming out from manufacturing industry. These are cultural goods coming out from cultural industry. Now the question is, what is cultural industry? Cultural industry, simply to tell you, is nothing but music, films, radio, magazines, Netflix, Amazon Prime. This is cultural industry. Okay. And you are 24/7 surrounded with this industry, surrounded by this industry. You cannot escape this industry, because one or the other second, even if you decide to go out of your home to have peaceful experience, still you would turn on music in the car. Okay, long drive wala music hai ye. Then you would land up somewhere, khana khate khate music, and while having food also, you would want to watch something which is very latest on Netflix. Family Man season 2 देखते हैं, चलो लाइफ चेंज कर लें अपनी. तो ये तुम समझ गए हो what is cultural industry. Now see the real analysis done by critical scholars. Critical this. The common men are sitting outside, standing outside, waiting for auditions. The auditions, the team is calling them, Ajo, Ajo, this is assembly line. X Factor, you are very different from all the other people. You have X Factor, you are Indian Idol, you are American Idol. X Factor, तुम्हारे पास ही है सिर्फ, आओ. These common men are going inside the audition hall with lot of ambitions. And how are they coming out? Like this. They have become a part of mass production. Similarly, just like industries are producing mass goods, the artists are produced in masses. Almost like that, each of them, just like in the industry is given identity which is very unique to them, is also assigned to these people. And why does it happen? The cultural industry is owned by the industrial capitalist class. If you do not know this fact, most of the things that you listen to, most of the things that you watch every day are owned by only six companies, media conglomerates, one of them being Disney, Viacom. There are these six companies, okay, which are controlling everything that you see. They are also controlling when do you sleep, and they are also controlling what do you read. Okay, every time. Now, what will happen? After going into an audition of the X Factor, they are coming out like this, just like the goods were coming out like that. And eventually, the cultural industry, the owners of these music industry would recognize that these people, the audiences, want only three things. Okay, they would they would understand that you love Rihanna, you love Lady Gaga, you love Britney Spears. What is very unique to these three goods? What is unique to them is the accent, the style, the gothic attitude, okay, and highly Western and different kind of image which is presented to them, and this pattern would then be reproduced, and multiple kinds of Brittany's, multiple kind of Rihanna's and Lady Gaga's would be produced. Okay, this is these are produced, and now what you will do? You will start consuming them, and what will happen? Just think about the things which are portrayed in the music albums these days. I have made out a pattern, and I know I will find this pattern in every music, especially in India or in North India. I will find a car, definitely. I will find cash. I will find drinks. I will also find girl with a car. I have made a pattern. Okay. Now this pattern will be reproduced. Every Punjabi singer, every Haryanvi singer, every singer who would try to claim they are very unique would have no choice but to reproduce these things only. And what will happen? What will happen? The citizens who were supposed to be critical conscious beings are reduced to masses because they are now consuming mass goods which are very similar, claiming to be very unique. And when you read similar thing, when you watch similar thing, you guys become similar and you lose your individual identity. And that is why when you will go to DU one day, they will say, have you not seen Game of Thrones yet? And you will say no, and then they will say, yeah, yeah, you are not cool like us. One day someone will say, आपने फैमिली मैन सीजन 2 नहीं देखा? अरे नहीं देखा भैया, टाइम ही नहीं है इतना. And the people will say, अरे these are very unique. अरे nothing is unique. You guys are not realizing that from citizens you have become, or you have been reduced to masses. And when you become mass, it is very easy. It is very easy to not think of what is going out in the economy or in society. वहां मर रहे हैं लोग कोरोना वायरस से, फैमिली मैन देख लो भाई, बड़ा चल रहा है सही. Now when you will start watching these things, what is happening? The capitalist industry has somehow distracted you and not let you develop the critical thinking or rational thinking, because the very idea of consciousness has been sublimed. Okay, and you have become masses. And since you have become masses, you would never question what is going wrong in the economy and in polity. And when you would never question what is going wrong in the economy and polity, revolutions will never come. You guys will never go out to give vote to the candidate that you think can change the system, because you are busy in watching Family Man. You are busy in watching Mirzapur. And you think this is very cool. अरे मिर्जापुर में क्या है? कुछ भी नहीं है. The same flavor of abuse, sex, drinks, cash, car, उस पैटर्न को रिपीट कर करके तुमको बेवकूफ बनाया जा रहा है और कुछ नहीं. people think, you know, Adorno once said, Adorno once said, God has been questioned, but now he has been replaced by Superman. God was questioned in enlightenment, but today you guys now fall in love with Superman, Superwoman, Lady Gaga, Rihanna, Britney Spears. These have become your idols. Durkheim once said, old gods are dead, new ones are yet to be born. Welcome to the world where we have new gods, new idol, Indian idol, American idol. You fall in love with these people. You fall in love with everything that they produce. Family Man, Mirzapur. How would revolution ever come? When you get tired from your work, what will you do? You want entertainment. You will open Netflix, Amazon, right? And when you are done with watching these seasons, you feel relaxed. You feel relaxed and you get back to work. But this is why these things were created, to make you feel relaxed so that you get back to work normally the next day. You do not complain, do not try to bring revolution. These things were created to convert citizens into masses, to convert the conscious people into conformist. Understood? This is the idea of critical theory. Now tell me, can a common man think like this? Common sense. अब तुम जरूर सोचना शुरू कर दोगे, वो अलग बात है. But in a common sense, we cannot think like this. Okay. Now, the question is, how is this a critique to positivism? Remember, main question kya hai? But before explaining this, I had no choice but to explain you what critical theory is all about. So now you know now you understand critical theory. Now let us try to see how did they criticize positivism. Okay. What is positivism? If you remember, what is positivism? Positivism says that society evolves naturally and whatever evolution would happen would be only for the maintenance of order. The last, what is the objective of Auguste Comte? To see when the order will come. Okay, and when he says society evolves naturally, and every everything is governed by law. And then you read critical theory. How did critical theory criticize positivism? Critical theory is saying that positivism is status quoist and pro establishment. क्या दिमाग है बताओ? What a level of thinking. Now you will say how, what is the meaning of this? But first write this down. Positivism is status quoist and pro-establishment. Pro-establishment. The question is, how is this a critique to positivism? Okay. It's very important for us to understand when positivism is speaking like this, society evolves naturally, everything is governed by laws, individuals cannot do anything. So what will happen? Even if you have cultural industry cropping up, okay, and even if you have billions of media companies cropping up, okay, trying to influence masses or trying to diffuse their critical thinking, making them passive recipient or robots involved in specific kind of arrangement of entertainment, uh, which is very much homogeneous, seems very heterogeneous. What will happen? Basically, critical theory is saying that positivism, by saying that everything is happening naturally, it is trying to prevent the revolutionary consciousness, which is very important amongst the masses. Critical theory is not talking about social change. Critical theory is saying that everything evolves naturally, and that is why too. That is why positivism saying is everything is all evolves naturally. So that is why to critical theory, these people seem very status quoist and pro-established. Did you guys understand? ठीक है. हाँ, लगता है थोड़ा टाइम लगता है. बताता हूँ मैं. Society. See, I'm positivist. I'm positivist. What I'm saying, society evolves naturally. Evolves naturally. But there are some economic collapse also going on. Ah, no, that is okay. Everything has a law. You are seeing economic disaster. After some point of time, social order will get restored. You do not need to do anything. You sit down. Society evolves naturally. There are certain laws. Okay, so you sit down. Okay. Now, when critical scholars are reading positivism, do you think, do you really think that this theory can ever promote social change? It will always say, sit down. There are laws which will automatically make evolution of society possible. If you see anything wrong, that is temporary. There are laws. So critical theory is questioning positivism. This is not something which is emancipatory. Rather, it is creating conformity. It is not letting the social change come. It is not letting the real consciousness to get developed among the masses. It is letting everything. You guys also, every in your everyday life, how do you guys speak? You say, ठीक है ना, ये बीजेपी है, पता है, देखो मोदी रहेगा, आएगा तो मोदी, देख लेना, आएगा तो मोदी, देख लेना. ठीक है, आ भी गया, देखो मैंने कहा था आएगा. अच्छा, अगले साल कौन आएगा? अब गांधी आ जाए. गांधी आएगा, आ गया, देखो आ गया. अच्छा, अगले साल. अरे ये सब चलता रहता है यार, ये सब चलता रहता है. तुम बैठे रहो, तुम्हारे वोट से कुछ नहीं हो रहा, बैठ जाओ तुम. ये सब देखो, इनका आपस में चलता रहता है. So why would I go to vote? Positivism says society evolves naturally. If there is any disorder, everything will happen. Everything will get back to order all by itself. Individuals do not exist. They do not even need to do anything. Social structures automatically evolves. When you read anything like this, would you ever think about bringing revolution and change the system? Right? And that is why positivism, to the critical theory, is status quoist, which maintains the status, believes in maintaining the order, let it be like the way it is evolving naturally, and therefore pro-establishment. Pro-establishment in the sense in the favor of state. In the favor of state. Okay? In the favor of state. क्या क्वेश्चन है तुम्हारा? According to this, how Marx needs to be looked? अरे, why these people? Why these people? Critical theorists. Why these people started writing? Why did they establish Frankfurt School? Because they wanted to understand why Marxist idea of revolution never occurred. So they are in love with Karl Marx and they want to see that world of communism. What is that one thing which is preventing communism to come? It is the cultural industry. In the Enlightenment, We were talking about reason, rationality, empiricism, skepticism. Today, those individuals have again become passive, obedient, conformist, complicit. Yesterday, it was, I think, therefore I am. Today, I shop, therefore I am. I watch Netflix, therefore I am. Okay, I shop Armani, therefore I am. Today, this is what has happened today. You stop thinking, you become consumer. When you become consumer, you are part of masses. As a part of mass, you lose your individual identity. When you lose individual identity, you cannot think critically. You cannot have critical consciousness. When you do not have critical consciousness, you would never be able to realize how these economic structures are actually supporting political structures, how media is engaged with the politically, all those things, and revolutions will never come. Got it? Okay. Adorno, these people are very important. You will realize when I will teach you Karl Marx. There is no question on Karl Marx which can be solved without mentioning these people. Okay? They are very important. These are what we call as neo-Marxism. This is what the neo-Marxism is all about. Neo-Marxists. These are also called as cultural Marxists. These are also called as Frankfurt School cultural Marxists. These are also called as critical theorists. नाम बड़े बड़े हैं बट चीज वही है. Let us now discuss. We have already covered those anti-positivism has already been covered. Okay. What we often call as non-positivist methodologies is nothing but anti-positivism. Okay. Critical theory covered. Now, let us try to see how else can we criticize positivism. Let me talk about post-positivism. Post-positivism. क्या हो गया? Sir, if their status quo is, then why social dynamics? Social dynamics is happening naturally. You are not doing anything. Why you actors are sitting silently? When someone tells you everything will change automatically, sit silent. Is this really dynamics? Huh? This is not dynamics. Dynamics is when you assert your voice and you bring the change. Imagine Mary Wollstonecraft. If somebody would have told her, sit silently, there will be a time when people will also start talking about women. Oh, you sit silently. If she had not written anything, nobody would have been talking about women. He is the first one to talk about. हाँ, critical theories, anti-positivism. अरे एंटी पॉजिटिविज्म भी उसको बोल सकते हो क्योंकि मैं पढ़ा कह रहा हूँ. क्रिटिक अगेंस्ट पॉजिटिविज्म पढ़ा रहा हूँ तो सब एंटी पॉजिटिविज्म ही हुआ ना. भाई एक बात बताओ, अब लॉजिकल रीजनिंग भी बताऊंगा क्यों है. ये पॉजिटिविज्म है, ये क्रिटिक है. अब क्रिटिक में कुछ भी बोलूं वो एंटी पॉजिटिविज्म ही होएगा. ठीक है. पोस्ट पॉजिटिविज्म. How is it different from positivism? If you remember positivism, since positivists are those people who talk about laws governing social world, everything happens naturally, okay, and individuals are nothing but simply obedient in the sense, since law govern the social world, what is the role of individual? Nothing. Okay, so if the role of individual is nothing, so individual is like that apple which fell from the tree. Nature is governed by laws. Apple had no choice but to obey the nature. That is why it fell down, because it had to obey law of gravitation. We also would obey the social laws. Okay, this is what the thinking of positivism is. Okay. Now, if this is how positivists think, what does it show? That to positivist people, reality is social world, basically, social reality is objective or subjective. Social world is highly objective or subjective, according to positivist. Objective. Second, if social world is objective, just like natural world, so when if I'm Newton and if I want to study this apple which has just fallen down, okay, I want to study this apple, would I study this apple with love emotions, as if since apple is my favorite fruit so I would eat it, I would not study? I'm not doing anything like this. I'm simply treating apple as object, which is the object of my research. I'm studying why apple fell down without any emotions. When a scientist is conducting research on white rat, okay, rat, obviously nobody would like rat, but they are not doing experiment like this. No, objectively, without any expression, objectively, it is that white rat to simply to them is an object of research. Now, if positivists say we are also governed by laws, so do you really think positivist person to empathize with you or with your poverty or with your poor status or with your Dalit condition or with your sexuality? No, he will study sexuality like this. Sexuality, poverty, phenomena, it will disappear over a period of time. Economy, phenomena. This is how positivists would study everything objectively, because they are living in this belief that society is governed by laws and they are the scientists of society. So they would also act like scientists. So obviously, when positivism study anything, the object they would maintain, or yes, they would maintain objectivity with detachment. Detachment. Understand the? Do you guys understand the meaning of this word detachment? Okay, detached. Look at the way how journalists journalists, TV journalists, when they would go to interview a poor person, okay, when they would go to interview poor person, you know, how do they behave? Look at the way the media journalists, they behave with the poor people. They would be like this, ऐसे रह लेते हो आप यहाँ पे, सरकार कुछ नहीं कर रही है इसका मतलब, how do you survive like this? Government, that means, is not doing anything for you. Oh my God, no, no, no. So you guys can easily see how and in what conditions these people are living, and government is doing nothing. This is how a media journalist will speak. Now see how a positivist will describe that poor. Now I'm a positivist. I have gone to the household of that poor person. Now I would not be like this. Oh my God, this is not the right condition to live. Government should be. No, this is not the way I would speak. I am scientist. I would maintain objectivity. That poor person or the poverty as a phenomenon to me is simply an objective reality. Detached observation. So I would be like this. Poverty. Okay. He would record everything. When did you build this house? When this house got established. Okay. And who's the owner of this house? Okay. What was the last government that came to power here? Okay. He will collect the data. Simply, he would not, गरीब बेचारे नहीं ऐसा नहीं होना ऐसा नहीं है. It's a phenomena. Okay. They would maintain objectivity with detachment. Third, they believe that data collected can be theorized to find cause effect. Data collected can be theorized to find cause effect relation. Okay. So now see how I'm going to study that same person. I will, after writing all the data, since how long you've been living here? 10 years. Okay. Who's the owner of this house? Okay. What do you do to earn money? Nothing. Okay. ऐसा नहीं, nothing, कुछ भी नहीं करते हो? नहीं, ऐसा कैसे? नहीं. Okay. Basically, finally, they will come out with a result. Unemployment causes poverty. Simple. I'm telling you very simple explanation. I don't want to talk about pseudo individualization, false consciousness, class in itself, class for itself. No. Unemployment causes poverty. Simple. Or since I have recorded her biography, okay, or his biography, and I have also collected data from other households. After collecting data from 10 households, I could come up with one generalization, because out of the 10 households which I visited, 8 belonged to lower caste people, 2 belonged to upper caste people. Out of those 8 lower caste household, 6 were male headed, 2 were female headed. But the conclusion that I would largely draw from this data of 10 households that I have collected is that casteism has a relation with poverty. Something of this sort. I don't want to go deep into this, but I just want to tell you how positivist study thinks. Let me tell you one more thing. You would every day. Now I'm going to tell you something which is very practical, okay, and then you will quickly understand. Okay, in the newspaper, Hindu, Indian Express, Hindustan Times, what do you read? You will read something like this: poverty in this district has been a major factor behind the rising crime rate. Do you read something like this in the newspaper? Or unemployment has been the biggest responsible reason for the increasing crime rate. What is this? This is positivist research. वो ये थोड़ा ना बोल रहे हैं बेचारे अनएम्प्लॉयड लोग, गरीबी हो रही है या फिर क्राइम गलत है, क्राइम गलत, क्राइम शुड नॉट बी हैपनिंग. बट व्हाट विल जर्नलिस्ट रिपोर्ट? Journalist, look at the way journalists will talk about crime. Crime is the worst phenomena. It should not be happening in any district. Okay, we had a dream of having a crime-free district. What about that dream? It's been 75 years since we have gotten independence, and still crime rates are increasing. This is how journalists will speak. ऐसे रो रो के, चिल्ला चिल्ला के वो करते हैं बात. Positivist, they will simply report to the Ministry of Home Affairs. चिल्लाएंगे नहीं वो, ऐसे रोएंगे नहीं. They will say, largely it has been casteism in operation which has led to the increasing crime rate amongst Dalits. वाह, कोई रोए नहीं, कोई चिल्लाया नहीं, कोई मरा नहीं, चुपचाप रिपोर्ट दी, बात खत्म हो गई. ठीक है? So this is what positivism is all about. Okay, every research that you read in the newspaper, and please do not ever think like this, positivism है यानी sociology वाले हैं. अरे नहीं, positivism is there in economy also. What do economists do? They talk about laws, models, mathematical equations. What does it show to us? Individuals, to them, are nothing but the subject of law of demand, law of supply. Homo economicus. And is highly rational, being utilitarian. We know how utilitarianism is driven by certain laws. Every research you study is nothing but positivist research in the newspaper. Okay. They believe that data collected can be theorized to find cause effect. Now let us see what the post positivism is all about. What would they say? First, remember, post positivism is a rejection, critique, or revision of positivism. Rejection, critique, or revision of positivism. Or revision of positivism. Okay. And it was given by, largely, if you have to write any name, you will have to write only one name, and the name of that person is our Mr. Karl Popper. Karl Popper. Okay. You can also write fourth point here in positivism before I start talking about post positivism also. Fourth point. Research is largely followed or driven by inductive reasoning. Research is largely driven by inductive reasoning. Inductive, IN. Largely driven by inductive reasoning. Okay. Social reality is objective to the positivist, but to the post-positivist, social reality is highly subjective. Is highly subjective. Even the researcher is influenced by biases and values. Even the researcher is influenced by the biases and values. Okay. The task of post positivist scholar is to acknowledge is to acknowledge those biases in his report. Acknowledge those biases in his report. What does it mean? It simply means, like, for example, today when you read any journal, any research article, what happens? After every At the end of the article, you always find the name of that person who has written the article along with the credentials. Now, why those credentials are mentioned? So that the reader could identify why this article was written and what could be the values behind this person. Like, for example, generally a common man would think like this: someone from JNU, suppose, if has written an article in the Hindu, what will you think? लेफ्टिस्ट होते हैं यहाँ के लोग, तो वो तो लिखेंगे ही ऐसा ऐसा, ठीक है, इसको अवॉइड करो, हिंदू अवॉइड करना है। अगले दिन हिंदू वापस पढ़ना शुरू कर देंगे क्योंकि उसमें इंपॉर्टेंट आर्टिकल आ गया। ओके, अब ये कंफ्यूजन चलती रहेगी चलती रहेगी चलती रहेगी। एनी हाउ, तो suppose if there is a women scholar, what will she do? Most of the times you will find women scholars uh, uh, you know conducting research on subject or topics like domestic violence, marital rape, brahminical patriarchy, unsafe conditions at the workplace. These are the kind of topics that you will find a women scholar doing research on. On the other hand, if you would also find Dalit scholar talking about Brahminical structures, Ambedkarite Buddhism, okay, Dalit Bahujan Samaj party, mobilization of the Dalits in the district against the upper caste hegemony. Okay, something of this sort you would find written by a Dalit scholar. You would also find something of sorts like The Burning Forest, written by Nandini Sundar, who is a professor of Delhi School of Economics of Sociology. He would always talk about tribal people. Why? He belongs to that area. He belongs to that area, and that is why. That is why you would always find her talking about Naxalism, Naxalites, the social composition of Naxalism, the influence of Maoism on the Naxalites. This is the kind of research that she does because she belongs to that area. The problem is, researchers are also influenced by many values because researcher is not an isolated individual. He also belongs to society. He also has multiple kind of social identities. Someone may be woman, someone may be Dalit woman, someone may be upper caste man, someone may be tribal, someone may be homosexual. You would find homosexual people conducting study on LGBTs. Okay, so researcher also has values and opinions, and it is inevitable for those values to get reflected in the research paper. And therefore, what is imperative on the part of researcher is to let the readers know that my values influenced, so please be careful. My values might have influenced. Now it is up to you to see whether it is objective or not. I have already told you, bhai, this is my social location. Now this is up to you. Got it now? Second, Positivism tells us we maintain objectivity with detachment. And as I told you in the first point here itself, detachment cannot be maintained. We are humans. Sociologists are not people coming from Mars. We are also humans. Okay, we are studying humans. That is a different thing. But unconsciously, your values do influence you while conducting research. And this is something that you will come to know eventually. Okay, complete separation is not possible. Third, they believe data can be theorized to find cause effect. Here you will write direct cause effect relation cannot be established. Cannot be established in social world. The direct cause effect relation or the monocausal relation, just like the way we establish in the natural world, cannot be established in the social world. For example, in the natural world, why apple fell? There is no perspective. There is one law. There is one cause, gravitation force. Baat khatam. Gravitation force led to the fall of apple. Game over. Game, cause effect. Monocausal relation. In social world, why did he commit suicide? Because of maybe poor, maybe unemployed, maybe recently got divorced, maybe breakup. Are multiple causes in social world. If some day you find a research like this that crime rate as a phenomena is nothing but the result of increasing poverty in the district, it seems to portray as if the poverty is the single factor. There are many other factors which could not be accounted for. Maybe because of the researcher's own social location, which might have influenced him to not talk about other factors. Maybe he was also a Brahminic man, so he did not talk about casteism being one of the factors behind this phenomena. Array, social world is not so easy. So, post positivism over. The fourth point is obviously in inductive reasoning we talk about, in positivism we talk about inductive reasoning. And do you guys very well know why Karl Popper got famous? Only for deductive reasoning. So instead of inductive, they follow deductive. Khatam. Khatam. Okay. So the critique to positivism is over. Now last topic. Okay, I'm not talking about conclusion, history, all those things. Okay, everything has been given to you handout. Today second part will be uploaded. You can easily read this. Okay, maximum 20 pages total. 10 pages I think have already been given to you. Tomorrow, today again you will get 10 pages more. Total 20 pages, nothing. Very easy. Okay. Let us talk about next topic. Fact, which is the last topic. Value and objectivity. Last topic. Unit 2 now over. Fine. Shubhangi, the title of post positivism is revision of positivism. How? Revision of positivism. Okay. You can write one more point in the post positivism, that despite all these differences, write down, despite all these differences, you have to write this point in post positivism. Okay, despite all these differences, post positivism believe in still believe in development of theories and generalization to explain human behavior. Development of theories and generalizations to explain human behavior. So this is why it is revising the positivism, critiquing it as well. Okay. Have you guys ever heard about nudge theory? Robert Thaler, nudge effect, nudge theory. Nudge theory, Robert Thaler. Perfect example of post positivism. Because this theory, what is this theory, by the way? Let me first explain this to those people also who have not heard about this theory. What is nudge effect? Very simple. Suppose I have a queue of 10 bicycles before me. 10 bicycles are there. Okay. 10 bicycles. What will happen? I will nudge one. एक को push करूंगा, बाकी will automatically fall, which we also call as cascade effect. Okay. Now, what is nudge? Exactly what nudge theory is all about. When you try to influence human behavior, this is nudging. Okay. In the sense, suppose people are not putting on mask despite coronavirus, ye wo sab. Okay. So what will happen? Government will now impose 20,000 rupees on whosoever is not going to put on mask. What will happen? Now you guys, अरे पहन लो 10 रुपए का मास्क है 20,000 रुपए दें फालतू का. Okay, so what will happen? You'll put on mask. Did it not nudge you to put on mask? Why people put on mask? Do you really think? Do you really think they believe in corona? The people who have not contracted corona do not believe in corona. Do you know this? जब होएगा एक दिन उनको तब पता चलेगा. Okay. The people who have not contracted corona, why do they still put on corona mask? Because they want to save on the money, on the fine which might get imposed on them if somebody see them like this. Okay. We put on mask to save money, not to save ourselves from coronavirus. Okay. However, nudge theory. Simply Robert Thaler explained that human behavior can be conditioned. Conditioning of the human behavior. Okay. Through some apparatuses, through some many things basically can influence. Like for example, advertisement. Advertisement industry nudges you. Okay, but it is not a very strong nudge. Basically, he recognized that human behavior exists. It is not something that can be manipulated into laws or it can be explained through theories or laws. Nudge theory was basically an acknowledgement of the human behavior. However, it is still theorizable. At the end of the day, it is still theorizable. Human behavior is not so subjective. Okay, this is what the large idea of Robert Thaler's thesis of nudge effect or theory is. Let me talk about fact, values, and objectivity. Tell me simply, who will talk about social world consisting of facts? Who will talk about positivism or Non-positivism. Tell me. Very good. Who will talk about value? Positivism or non-positivism? Very good. ये भी ओवर हो गया. अब एक रह गया. Objectivity. See, now notes are given to you. Na? Why to waste so much time? Already things are known to you now. Okay. Let us quickly start with Unit 4, the major idea. Last is objectivity. I'll give brief amount of time on objectivity. Brief. Does objectivity exist in the social world? Positivist will say yes. Non-positivist will say no. Okay, no. But let us first define what is objectivity. Before talking about who will say what, let us first try to define objectivity is a phenomena that is highly devoid of values, biases, and opinions, and based purely on fact. Simple. Okay. Any statement can be objective if it is factual, if it is not value loaded, or if it is not opinionated. Okay, any statement can be objective. Like for example, I have mobile phone. Objective statement or not? Yes. I have world's best mobile phone. ये नहीं है ऑब्जेक्टिव. कहां से वर्ल्ड बेस्ट? वन प्लस है ये. दिस इज नॉट वर्ल्ड बेस्ट. Okay. So that was not the objective statement. Any phenomena or any statement that is highly devoid of values, biases, opinions, and based purely on fact is objective or objectivity. The problem in the social world is, मैं लिख यहाँ पे दे देता हूँ. If you remember, positivists are those people. Positivists claim that social world is highly objective. And can be theorized upon. This is what positivists believe. Social world is governed by laws, therefore highly objective. Individual consciousness so do not exist. The world actually drive them. Societies evolve naturally. So It can be theorized, social world can be theorized easily. Okay, now let us try to understand what are the problems faced by those people who try to conduct positivist research in the social world. Okay, and then you will come to know whether objectivity exists in the social world or not. If you remember, I am social scientist. I want to conduct a research. Okay, the first step to conduct research is to identify the problem or identify the topic on which you want to have research on, right? So the first step, topic selection. You guys selected one topic to research on. The very step of selecting a topic is not objective. Do you know this? If I am a tribal person, more often than not, I would be conducting research on Adivasis or tribal people or tribal religion, Naxalism, Maoism, Andamanis, Western Odisha, Eastern Jharkhand. The topics that I would be conducting would be influenced by my social location. So the topic selection itself is not objective. Okay. Second, you review literature. This was the so-called step in the scientific method. After selecting a topic, you read who other scholars have done research on the same phenomena. Now it is completely up to you, whatever you want to read, whosoever you want to refer to. Now you may refer to liberals, you may refer to left-wing radicals, you may refer to any writings. It's completely up to you. And then you say, in the third step, we formulate hypothesis. Array, what is the guarantee that the hypothesis that you have formulated is not influenced by the readings that you have done in the second step? Readings of the highly radical scholars or may even be conservatives. तो वैल्यूज तो आएंगी, इधर भी आएंगी. You will have values somehow creeping into your research even at the second step. In the third step, when you formulate hypothesis, again my social location will influence the formulation of hypothesis. Suppose I am a woman. Suppose I am a woman. The topic that I have chosen is domestic violence for research. The readings that I will refer in the review of literature step, I will refer scholars like Chula Smith, Firestone, Simone de Beauvoir, Mary Wollstonecraft. These are so radical writings now. If a girl starts reading them, next day divorce hai, divorce. Agle hi din. These are so radical writings. Okay. Most of the professors in Delhi University are single. They are in the age of 50s. 60s. And to them, singlehood is very normal phenomena. You are idiots that you think, huh, single abhi tak kaise? I told you, social world is illusion. You have made this thing objective in your mind by thinking 21 is the age when you get married. This is an order. They did not become part of this order. So they will seem very radical or may even seem conservative to the person, depending on who that person is, who is evaluating her. Arey, social world is highly complex. Formulate hypothesis. This girl formulated hypothesis that it is not only patriarchy, it is also the role of mother-in-law. Mother-in-law is what? Mother-in-law is not nothing but agent of patriarchy. Like for example, mother-in-law जो आज जैसे there was a show in 90s I think or 2000 क्योंकि सास भी कभी बहू थी. In the sense, uh, there was a time when this in-law, the mother-in-law was also a daughter-in-law. There was a time. And when she was daughter-in-law, she was very docile, trying to understand the culture of the people that she has gotten moved into, since it is a patrilocal concept we have that a girl has to go to the house of male. Okay, so she was trying to get herself acquainted with the new environment, new city, new people. Hello, hello. Okay, so finally, what will happen? Her freedom, which she thought she will enjoy, the kind of way she used to enjoy back at her home, now that freedom has been, he has been bereft of that freedom. Her husband will tell you, no out, no late night movies, parties, सब भूल जाओ. तुम्हारे दोस्त कौन है? जो मेरे दोस्त हैं वही तुम्हारे. कौन? रेखा. काटो फोन. रेखा फोन. कहीं नहीं जाओगी तुम. शुदा हो, सिंगल विंगल नहीं हो. This girl will formulate hypothesis. It is not only patriarchal culture, it is also the patriarchal bargain. Now, don't think about the concept, just think about what is happening. This daughter in law, which has over a period of time, after feeling exploitation, now she has also become mother in law. Now, her son will bring in a new daughter, and what will happen? She will tell, Arey, this is very normal, beta. No need to get worried. No, this is very normal. Obviously, beta, you would not go out. This is not our culture. When on the first place itself you were feeling problem with this thing, but since it has become normal to you, you would reproduce the same normality to the next generation of the girl which is going to come to your house. The mother-in-law becomes agent of patriarchy, and she has bargained with patriarchy to claim her power in the limited shell that she has been made to situate in. समझे? So the review, so the formulation of hypothesis would be like this. Patriarchal bargain is responsible for domestic violence. Okay, something like this. But the problem is, she is a woman. People would say, obviously, you would say like this, you are a woman, obviously, you would speak like this. ऐसा होता नहीं है, सबके घर में थोड़ा ना होता है. So basically, your research would also not be called as objective. At the end of the day, जितना attempt कर लो, जितना वो कर लो, it will never be regarded as objective. Let me talk about some very important steps also other than these classical steps. Okay, this is only a model. It is not that all the researchers are following this model step by step. ऐसा होता नहीं है. Okay, this is only a model, reference point. very important thing which influences or disturbs the idea of objectivity in your research is who is funding your research. पैसा कौन दे रहा है ये सब करने का? Who is funding your research will influence your research outcome. Few years back, few years back, there was a campaign that was running, anti-tobacco campaign. No smoking, World Cancer Day, all those things. What happened? Next day, research came out in the Hindu. The research was conducted by a scientific body, and the research report said indoor air pollution is more injurious than smoking. What? खाना मैं खाऊंगा ही नहीं घर का, मैं बाहर जा रहा हूं, सिगरेट ही पी लेते हैं, मरना ही है, घर पे रह के ऐसे बाहर। बताओ, व्हाट इज ऑब्जेक्टिविटी? Last year in the lockdown, there was a research in a newspaper called as Live Mint. Live Mint. Okay, these are those papers which you read, you make notes out of. You do not think about these things, what is actually going on in the back end of those reports which are coming out. Okay, the report in the Live Mint last year was, when lockdown was imposed, reports were coming out like this. Smokers are immune from coronavirus largely. Whoever smokes got happy. लगाने दो mask. Why this research came out? Because tobacco companies never wanted people to stop smoking. Just because it is a virus, your lungs are not safe anymore. So what would be the first thing that you would do now? You would stop smoking. They did not want you to stop smoking because it would ruin their profits. And that is why the report came out next day. Smokers are immune from coronavirus. अरे बढ़ाओ immunity. Okay. So who funds your research? Coca-Cola, McDonald's. These are those companies which are very infamous in the sense people know that these companies are selling products which are not good for health, which are detrimental to health, like high sugar Coca-Cola and high fatty food or cheesy food like burgers, all those things, mayonnaise, ये जो culture आ गया हर चीज में mayonnaise डालने का, मोमोज mayonnaise वाला मोमो, कोल्ड ड्रिंक mayonnaise वाली, गार्लिक ब्रेड mayonnaise, हर चीज में चीज चीज चीज, एक नहीं दो नहीं तीन चीज. Anyhow, now the fact is McDonald's and Coca-Cola, they knew that obesity is something, a major problem, and American people are taxing high on these foods now. American state actually taxed heavy imposition of taxes on Coca-Cola and McDonald's. Okay, this is what the reaction was. Even in Sweden or Denmark, you would see a tax called as fat tax. Tax imposed on the food which is very fatty. This is also a nudging. It is nudging you to consume something which is healthy. Okay, because the unhealthy is becoming very costly due to taxes. You will automatically get nudged to buy something which is healthier. Anyhow, so since Coca-Cola and McDonald, they knew that in the name of obesity, people have started hitting these people, Coca-Cola and McDonald's. So what did they do? They They collaborated with the universities like University of California, UCLA, University of Texas. Okay, they collaborated with these universities, and then they ran what? Yoga sessions, physiotherapy sessions, how to maintain healthy life sessions, sponsored by Coca-Cola and McDonald's. So basically, the research was done to improve their image amongst the masses. Okay, so as to shed off that image that has been created by the uh, advertisements or the so-called NGOs or civil societies. Okay, they wanted to shed that image off. That is why these healthy looking things are now being sponsored by us. Research is not objective. Who funds your research disrupts the idea of objectivity. Okay, Durkheim. Durkheim conducted research on a topic called as suicide. He's a sociologist given in your syllabus. He conducted research in on this topic suicide. The very selection of this topic suicide was also influenced uh, by why did he conduct research on suicide? Because his father nahi, because his friend his friend had lost his life, and this friend was very close to Durkheim. He could not bear the loss, and he started wondering why people commit suicide. Okay, what are those factors which influence the people in the society to commit suicide? It was his friend. Okay, his friend, not his son or not his father. Okay, Durkheim also had one son, by the way, who Durkheim lost in the World War. Durkheim published this book on suicide in the year 1892. World War happened in the year 1910 onwards. Okay, so obviously, son did not commit suicide, and then it influenced Durkheim to write the book. It was his friend loss that he could not bear. So, and when I will teach you Durkheim suicide theory, I will teach you that he has conducted positivist research. But the question is, if he is a positivist, he should have maintained objectivity. But now I'm telling you that the very topic selection is influenced by the circumstances that he was a part of. Okay, so this is also critique. But however, I'm not going into the details of these things. But now I hope you know what objectivity is and what objectivity is not. Okay, and how objectivity influences those steps that a scientist is supposed to carry out before coming out with the final research. Okay, there is one scholar. Now this is important. Gunnar Middle. Gunnar Middle and Alvin Goldner. Gunnar Middle and Alvin Goldner. What have they argued? They basically argue that objectivity is illusion. Simply, objectivity is illusion. Objectivity is illusion. Okay, and you will come to know how. Suppose today you read uh, a report like this. In fact, this report also got published in Hindu this January itself. Every day, 28 students commit suicide. Every day, 28 students commit suicide. It is published by NSSO or whatever the body may be, but very scientific body, NSSO or any other body. Okay. NCRB, National Crime Record Bureau. Obviously objective. It is not objective. I'll tell you why. Those 28 people who committed suicide, who recorded those bodies as a victim of suicide? Who recorded those bodies as victim of suicide? Police officials. Police officials went to the spot. They saw body lying by the fan, or they saw, if not lying by the fan, they also saw some suicide notes, some pages uh, which are spread all over the room. These things actually gave this police official an impression, must be suicide. Suicide wrote page. I can see the room is completely shattered. Okay, I can see bottles here and there. I can see glass of drug. Okay, something like this. These things are actually giving those police officials an impression that this person must have committed suicide. But the fact is, he was murdered. He was murdered by someone, and he planted the murder in such a fashion that any outsider would record it as suicide only. Okay, basically nothing is objective. Anyhow, objectivity is illusion, simply just remember this. Okay, let me also write down one line which they say, fact and value cannot be separated. Okay, okay, let me talk about Max Weber, what he has to say on objectivity. Write down. Max Weber argues, Max Weber argues that the very first step of choosing a topic, the very first step of choosing a topic or selection of topic is influenced by the values of researcher, is influenced by the values of researcher. Hmm. Okay. And this cannot be avoided. And this cannot be avoided. And this cannot be avoided. Therefore, therefore, instead of having value-free sociology, instead of having value-free, value-free, that means completely objective, value-free sociology, we should have value-neutral sociology. Now, what is the meaning of this? Value-neutral. Value neutral simply means you do not regard those people as objects of the nature, just like we have apple in the nature. You cannot treat people like apple. Okay, you have to understand their values, you have to sympathize with them. Okay, at max you should not be letting your own values influence your research, but it should not be coming at the cost of the values of those people who is the subject of our research. Their values are important, your values you can ignore, their values should be recorded. So what is value neutral? Basically, value free sociology. Okay, and value free, remember one thing, when you talk about value free sociology, there are many scholars who have spoken great length about this topic. Some people have interpreted value free as value neutral. Some people have clearly differentiated between value free and value neutral. So we do not need to get confused between these two terms. Okay, for us, what is important to understand is value free sociology is the one which clearly separates knower from the known. Clear separation between knower and the known. Values of the researcher will not influence the data that he is going to collect. Value of the researched, someone who he is researching on, is also not going to influence the way he conducts his research. My value 0, your value 0. I am scientist, you are apple. That's it. Scientists cannot have any attachment for apple. Completely objective recording. This is known as value free sociology. Okay. Second, of course, it is largely supported by positivists. Second is value neutral. What is value neutral sociology? That if I am scientist, you are that chuha I'm researching on, whether you are poor chuha, Dalit chuha, black chuha, whatever that you may be, your values are important. My values should be ignored. This is value neutral. Here, values of both are ignored. In value free, values of both are 0. But here, value of researcher is 0. But value of researched is important. Okay. And Max Weber is clear supporter of this idea. Value neutral sociology, not value free sociology. Okay. And there are some people in the foreign universities who regard value neutral is equal to value free when they are talking about Max Weber. Okay, in the sense they are saying the same thing, but instead of value neutral, they are using value free. So the terms should not be getting confused. Okay, so to have a clear distinction is very important. So you will remember this one, which is very much in line with the requirement of UPSC. Okay. Now last, David Marsland. David Marsland. How has he critiqued the notion of objectivity? Once the researcher's values enter into research, the research cannot be objective. Okay. तो इट मे हेल्प डेफिनेटली, बट रिसर्च ऑब्जेक्टिव नहीं रहेगा. हमको तो वो समझना है ना, ऑब्जेक्टिविटी का क्रिटिक है. हो सकता है उसकी वैल्यूज अच्छी हो, अच्छा आदमी हो, पढ़ा लिखा हो, डज नॉट मैटर, उसकी वैल्यूज इन्फ्लुएंस नहीं करनी चाहिए. ओके, डेविड मार्सलैंड, व्हाट डज ही से? ही सेज sociology is sociology is a left wing propaganda. Sociology is a left wing propaganda. I'll explain how. Sociology is a left wing propaganda. Okay, how? By the way, this statement which he has made is really nonsense. He himself belongs to neo-right perspective, and that is why he is calling sociology as left wing, because he wants to be seen as supporter of right wing. Okay, so in this statement also there is no objectivity. Anyhow, he says that when students teach capitalism in the class of sociology, what they learn is nothing but exploitation, alienation, job dissatisfaction, class consciousness, false consciousness, pseudo individualization, false consumerism. This is the things which they are learning in the class of sociology. And this is creating, or this is making them skeptic. They start uploading their WhatsApp statuses next day and what Facebook status, that the world is illusion. What have I learned just now? They convert the people into skeptics. This is the propaganda of the socialist left wing scholars. These are those people who want to turn Marxism into reality. They could not turn it. Now they have created a discipline to establish their hegemony in the or amongst the humanity or amongst the students, so that they could gradually convince people into Marxism. This is nothing but a neo form of Christian proselytization program run by the secular professors teaching sociology, converting people into Marxism. ये इतना ही समझना है. You have to simply understand. David Marsland says, write down, Marxism, Marxism or feminism Marxism or feminism are not value-free approaches. Marxism or feminism are not value-free approaches. They are highly value-loaded approaches. They are highly value-loaded approaches. Okay. The students of sociology, the students of sociology turn out to be a critique of capitalism. The students of sociology turn out to be critique of capitalism, which in itself is not an objective approach. Which in itself is not an objective approach. Okay. So basically, this is these are the kind of debates which happen. Okay. So I don't want to go into more and more debates because this is never ending. Never ending. ठीक है. मैं इसके ऊपर 10 क्लास भी ले सकता हूँ सिर्फ ऑब्जेक्टिविटी पे, कोई मतलब है नहीं. ओके. ओके, यस प्रतिभा, व्हेन यू रीड ऑब्जेक्टिविटी, हमने क्या समझना है? व्हेन वी रीड ऑब्जेक्टिविटी, हमको समझना है वैल्यू फ्री पॉजिटिविज्म. ओके. फिर हमने बताना है कि ये पॉसिबल क्यों नहीं है. ठीक है. फिर हमने मैक्स वेबर या फिर वो जो स्कॉलर्स मैंने बताए उनकी बात करनी है. Okay. The structure you will get to know when you read handouts. Okay. Always start with the definition of the concept and then bring in different flavors. Okay. So unit 2 is now over. Now we will have 10 minutes break, and after 10 minutes we are going to solve previous year questions of both unit 1 and 2, and also not all the questions, because I am going to give those questions, many questions to you guys now according to the teams. Okay, the list will be uploaded to you by evening. Okay, and people will have to write questions on only, I'll explain. Let me take a break, 10-minute break, फिर मैं आगे वापस बोलता हूँ. Okay, 10 minutes break. You guys have this with you? Okay. Now it must be, whatever you have must be 14th edition, because if in case if you have 11th or 12th edition, if I'm talking about question 1, तुम्हारा question 1 अलग होएगा, मेरा question 1 अलग होएगा, सेंस बनेगा नहीं. So please buy 14th edition and buy hard copy. Do not rely on soft copies. Okay, hard copy. ये इस तरह की चीजें हार्ड में होनी चाहिए. Let us start with first we will start with unit 2, because recently हमने वो cover किया. Page number 8 of Vishal, Sociology as Science. First question that we are going to solve is question number 1. Is sociology value free science? Discuss. Okay. Is sociology value free science? This is the last year question. Okay. Now see how do we approach the questions. Okay. I'll also tell you which question you should not be attempting right now, because the content to write answer on those questions you guys would be equipped with that content later on. Okay, so you do not have to worry about few questions. I'll let you know about those questions as well. Is sociology value free science? I'll discuss only structure with you, not content. Content is something that you have to fill. Is sociology a value free science? Discuss. Also, remember one thing, knowledge is different thing. When it comes to writing, it is a different game altogether. Yesterday, I asked the technical team, okay, to upload one article on the group. They uploaded the article, and I had asked them to also ask the students to think as to what they can come out with if they read this article sociologically. No, I also went through some of the answers that you guys have written in the group. Trust me. Trust me. That was nonsense. Okay. Whatever you had written was nonsense. Except one or two. I don't want to name them. Except one or two, everybody else did not get it. Precisely. See, knowledge is a pool. Okay. What is required to answer the question is not that pool. Some drops from that pool is required. But what you do? पूरा pool गिरा दिया. इतना पता था सब लिख दिया. Okay. Precision matters in this examination. Precision matters. Okay. Is sociology value free science? What will I do? What should be the approach of any such question? First approach, as I told you, should be to highlight the keywords. Value free science clearly is a keyword. Clearly, okay. Now to some people, science can also be another keyword. It could be one, or it could be like this, two. Okay, to some people the whole could be one. Automatically differences will start getting reflected on the answers, depending only on your interpretation, not on the content that you have referred. The game is now all about interpretation and the precision. Okay, it is not about content anymore. Value free science. What would I do? First task would be to define value free science. This is how I am going to approach. This question is of 10 marks only, 150 word. अब तुम गेम देखो मैं क्या करता हूँ. I do not know sociology. I do not know sociology. Okay. Have referred only one lecture. आज का lecture देखा है बस. Nothing else. What will I do? I will define value free science as it is. And what is value free science? Who would support the idea of value free science? Positivist or non-positivist? Positivist. So obviously I have, that means recognized what has to be written here. So I will say value free science was proposed by positivists, and then I will also show off a little bit. थोड़ा show off करना पड़ेगा. Positivist bracket में like Auguste Comte and Durkheim. You do not know Durkheim right now, okay? But just to make one little impression, Durkheim का नाम अभी डाल देते हैं. नहीं डालते, चलो नहीं डालते. हमने पढ़ा ही नहीं तो क्यों डालें? हम वो उतने से ही करेंगे जितना हमें आता है. Comte was proposed by positivists since they believed that social world is highly objective and determined by social laws. Simple. Did I say anything that is not known to you? No, it's known to you. Okay, but what happens? I'll tell you all the issues that student faces, because I am also a student. Okay, I am also a student. So I know exactly the issues which student would face. Student would do this kind of mistake. They would, they would try to break this into value free science. First they will start with the features of science are, okay, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I am saying what generally they do and how they lose the track of question. Okay, they think they are right, but that is not precision. So they will start talking about the features of science: replicability, objectivity, empiricism, theoretical, ये वो कर करके ऐसे क्या हुआ, और उसको explain भी करेंगे. They will also explain what is the meaning of replicability, what is the meaning of empiricism, what is the meaning of theoretical, what is the meaning of cumulative. For example, cumulative, I'll tell you cumulative. For example, वो जो था वो heliocentric, ये इधर ये जो देखो अब तुम ये heliocentric हो गया है, वो established knowledge. अरे तुम क्या बोल रहे हो? क्वेश्चन क्या है? कहाँ जा रहे हो? इस सोशियोलॉजी वैल्यू, यहाँ रुक जाओ. वैल्यू फ्री साइंस शांति से डिफाइन कर दो और बात खत्म कर. Okay, once I have defined value free science, what is the next step that I'm going to do? I will talk about law of three stage, because I have limited knowledge. I do not know Durkheim. I have not read Durkheim. Why should I talk about positivist study on suicide? I have not read Durkheim. I have read only Auguste Comte. And it is not that Durkheim is more powerful than Auguste Comte. ऐसा नहीं होता है, सारे हीरोज हैं सोशियोलॉजी में, सब हीरो हैं एक ना एक फील्ड के, ठीक है. लॉ ऑफ थ्री स्टेजेस, आई विल मेंशन लॉज लाइक दिस, ठीक है. क्या हुआ इससे? इससे वो फ्लो चार्ट भी आ गया, डायग्राम भी आ गया, ठीक है. जो जिससे बड़ा प्यार है स्टूडेंट्स, डायग्राम वो भी आ गया. तो पहले मैंने क्या किया? पहले प्रिसाइसली मैंने डिफाइन किया. सेकेंडली, I have also made a diagram, and this diagram is completely in sync with what I wrote initially. ऐसा नहीं है डायग्राम ऐसी हवा में आ गया एकदम, पीछे से कुछ था ही नहीं उसका लेना देना, नहीं था उसका लेना देना. पीछे की जो लास्ट लाइन है उससे बिल्कुल सिंक कर रहा है, रैंडमली नहीं लिख दिया. ओके ओके. फिर मैंने थोड़ा और शो ऑफ कर दिया, कीवर्ड्स लिख दिए, सोशल स्टैटिक्स, सोशल डायनेमिक्स. ठीक है. इतना, बस इतना. हाउ मेनी वर्ड्स हैव आई रिटन सो फार? हार्डली 25 maybe. One diagram है, only 25. I'm still left with so many words. I have lot of space. Now what will I do? Generally what happens is people tend to write random things because they want to fill pages. Their target is to fill pages. So they would start with origin of positivism, origin of values. Okay, because target दो पेज भरने का है, तो वो टारगेट ही गलत चूज किया है. So value free science defined, diagram made. Now the question. Let us come back to question. Is sociology value free science? Okay. Then I will write down positivism was highly influenced by the notion of natural science and hence believed in studying social world with scientific method. साइंटिफिक मेथड आ गया. अब मैं जा रहा हूं, बहुत ही क्लोज जा रहा हूं, ऑलमोस्ट, आई एम ऑलमोस्ट देयर. ओके, आई हैव prepared the ingredients. Now is the time to turn on the cylinder or LPG or LNG or PNG, whatever you have. Okay, and then मैगी बनने के लिए तैयार है 2 मिनट में. Okay, positivism was highly influenced by the notion of natural science and hence believed in study of social world with the scientific method. Okay. अब क्या करोगे? अब आ गया टाइम. The time is to answer. You have built up enough content. Now is the time to answer. So you will say, however, as I told you, this is the landmark keyword in your answer. इस landmark पे आपको पहुंचना ही पहुंचना है, नहीं तो you will never reach your destination. Okay. However, scientific method is not highly objective in social world because values of researcher influence the research. This is first point. Second, scientific method is not highly objective in social world because first point, values of researcher influence the research. Okay. You may also mention, for example, Durkheim did study on suicide because he lost his friend. Example भी दे दिया साथ ही. Second statement. Research is funded by organization. Is funded by organizations which also influence the research. तो वैल्यू फ्री तो नहीं हो सकता. Third, formation of hypothesis. Formation of hypothesis is influenced by social location of researcher. Okay, for example, Marxist scholar would always research on increasing class inequalities. You must have heard about this report, Oxfam report. They would always come up with this kind of very commonsensical finding. 10% of the world has 98% of the wealth. अरे बस करो भाई, कितनी बार एक ही चीज बार बार बोलोगे? हर साल एक ही रिपोर्ट. But what is this report talking about? This report is highlighting class inequalities, wealth inequalities in society. The people who have conducted such research, they are highly influenced by Marxism. Okay, there may not be inequality. This may not be objective. How do you define wealth, by the way? Then you can talk about wealth inequality. There is no enough valid criteria to define wealth or to define what is wealth. To some people, knowledge is wealth. ऐसे भी होते हैं. The idea of wealth is not only material. Education is the basic resource to accumulate wealth. Okay, Rabindranath Tagore. So, what is wealth? So, function of hypothesis, the formation of hypothesis influenced by social location of researcher. Okay, example I can give, which I have already given. And finally, I can also talk about David Marsland. What did he tell us? Marxism and feminism are left-wing propaganda, which clearly says sociology is not value-free, highly value-loaded. अभी मुझे इतना ही आता है, सो इतना ही बोलूँगा. I have not read Unit 4. I do not know Unit 4. I do not know Karl Marx. But with the limited information, I have addressed the question perfectly with those important keywords and the important scholars which should be there. Okay, I may even write one nice conclusion, and remember, conclusion is nothing but the question plus the summary of your content. Question plus summary of your content. Question should always be there. The essence of question should always be there, because after the end of the reading, you have to leave this impression to the examiner that you addressed the question. That is why you have written all this thing. Okay, it is not that you have read these things and you wanted to write this irrespective of the question. No, I respect the question, and these things are completely in sync with what the question was. So this is therefore this conclusion. Okay. So initially I thought I will discuss structure only, but I have also written the content. Now I'll talk only about structure. Okay, because content will definitely vary. Next question. Methodology is a system of rules, principles, procedures which form scientific investigation. This question is from unit 3. Write down unit 3. इसके आगे लिखो. The question on methodology. Unit 3. The question on methodology, unit 3. Why did Vishal write it here? Because the people publishing yearly are not sociologists. Okay, they simply read methodology and they read the syllabus. Methodology word कहाँ लिखा है? अच्छा, वो unit 2 के B में लिखा है major theoretical stands of research methodology, यानी यहाँ का क्वेश्चन होगा unit 2 में डाल दो. They do not know sociology. Okay, they have done common sense thing, nonsense. Okay, so this question avoid. Unit 3 लिख दो. Next question. Phenomenological perspectives in sociology reject many of the assumptions of positivism. Very easy question. What should be the structure? I do not know phenomenology. I do not know positivism. I know nothing. What is the structure that I am going to follow? First, write down the question. Phenomenological perspectives in sociology reject many of the assumptions of positivism. Okay, comment. The structure. First task is to encircle the keywords. The keywords are assumptions of positivism. Not just positivism, assumptions of positivism. Okay. Second keyword is phenomenological perspective. And what is the link between these two keywords? Phenomenology, reject positivism. What does it show? How do we start our answer with? We start our answer with phenomenology or positivism. We start our answer with positivism because it was rejected by phenomenology. So first you have to write positivism. So, and these things matter a lot. But what will happen? You read phenomenological perspective. That was the first word in the question. So obviously you will start with definition of phenomenology. No. यही तो खेल है. पहले encircle किया, उसके बाद structures को read किया, and then we figured out actually the question demands us to critique positivism, critique of positivism basically. Okay, and which critique? There are many critique. Only one critique, phenomenology. So basically we have to write positivism first and then we critique. So the structure would be like this. First I wrote positivism and then I critiqued by phenomenology. What are the assumptions of positivism? You know this very well. In case you are not able to recall, do not worry. Handouts have already been given to you. Part 2 will be given to you right after the class. Read the booklet. Okay. You will understand everything one by one. Now since you have gone through the classes, everything will be very clear to you. Okay. There are hardly 5 or 6 assumptions. Those things which I talked about were assumptions only. World is governed by social laws. It is what? Assumption. Has it been validated? It cannot be tested according to Karl Popper. Therefore, to Karl Popper, positivism is pseudoscience. Because it cannot. Nature is governed by law of physics. Can it be tested? Yes, it can be tested. Therefore, it is not pseudoscience. Positivism, social world is governed by laws. Can it be tested? No, pseudoscience. But that does not mean we should not study. We have to study, because only according to Karl Popper it is pseudoscience. Otherwise it is not. Okay. Positivism, we write 4 or 5 or 6 assumptions, whatever. Does not matter whether you have written 5, 4, 6. ऐसे number से नहीं चलना. Okay. And then criticize phenomenology. Phenomenology criticizing positivism. Now there are two kind of approaches. Some people have the potential. Okay, there are some people after, and this comes after multiple readings. ऐसा नहीं, there are inborn talents. Some people do write like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They make a table and then phenomenology. How the first point is critiqued by phenomenology. How second is critiqued by third. It looks very beautiful, but to have this kind of level, you need lot of revision. It will not come with one revision. It will come with at least 10 revision. Okay, and it will happen eventually. It will happen. Okay. This level pe you have to reach. This is your target. But for the time being, what will we do? For beginners, what we can do? We write first positivism assumptions, and then however, and then phenomenology criticizes positivism like this with examples. We have to give social order is illusion. Has to be there. How do we construct this illusion? Should be there. These things. There is stock of knowledge, there is intersubjectivity, there is no objectivity. Intersubjectivity is a word given by phenomenology school, in the sense to describe that one object does not have one meaning. One object can have multiple meanings according to multiple people, according to multiple time and spaces. Still we make sense of it uniformly because all of us share a stock of knowledge. Okay, red can have multiple meaning, but still we make one inference. Red means stop on the road, because we had this common stock of knowledge. Common sense somehow got utilized in making sense of the social order. Otherwise, social order is illusion. Okay, anyhow. So you know the approach now. Next question. Fourth. Is non-positivistic methodology scientific? Okay, even before this, let me talk about those questions which are straightforward. For example, acha, remember which question you do not have to do. Question number 5. Does scientific method make sociology a science? It is doable, but next part is illustrate answer with Durkheim's method. Durkheim is something that you will read in unit 4. Okay, so the latter part should be, you should write unit 4 in the latter part. Okay, all these questions which we are going to skip for the time being, we will come back later on once we have gone through unit 4. Okay, 6th question, unit 3, question number 6. Explain with examples explanatory and exploratory designs of social research. This is part of unit 3. Write down unit 3. 7th question. Examine ethno-methodological and phenomenological perspectives as critique of positivism. Structure you can easily figure out all by yourself now. Okay, doable. Okay, बस पढ़ना है अब आपको. 8th question. Examine basic postulate of positivism and post-positivism. Doable? Doable. What I did when I draw a table on positivism and post-positivism, that was nothing, basically a direct answer. Basically I have given lecture also and answer also directly. Okay. That is up to you. You may make one paragraph on positivism and then second paragraph post-positivism. But if you have multiple revision, you can make a table direct. It will definitely give a better presentation to the examiner. Okay, I'm not sure, I cannot say that examiner will give more marks to someone who has drawn table and less marks to someone who has not drawn table. Table is not the criteria, presentation matters. Okay. Ninth question. Elaborate the main tenets of interpretative sociology, interpretative perspective in sociology. Unit 4. Unit 4. Interpretative, for the time being, simply understand. I did not want to take the name of this word because I want to reach Unit 4 first. Interpretative sociology means simply nothing but Max Weber social action theory. Simple. With some keywords like Verstehen plus hermeneutics, but you will not understand these things right now. You need to have proper understanding of Unit 4. Okay, so write down Unit 4 here. Next question, question number 10. What is value free sociology? Clarify. Doable? Okay. 11th question. Describe the basic postulates of scientific method. How far are these followed in sociological research? Doable? Can you define the basic postulates of scientific method? Can anybody tell me? I just need 5 keywords, nothing else, or 4 keywords, or whatever. Basic postulate. Only, I don't want long sentences, only 4 keywords. Harsh Gupta, that is not basic postulate. These are steps that you have written. I'll tell you the basic postulate. Observation. First you observed that your car is not functioning. Then you developed hypothesis. What could be the reasons? Then you tried to work out on one hypothesis. You did experimentation. Before that you predicted that if you do this, everything will be fine. What is this? These are basic postulates of scientific method. I am not asking about basic postulate of science, Mr. Kishore Kumar. I am not asking features of science. The question, read the question. Basic postulates of scientific method, and I have also dictated this thing to you with the same heading. Okay, these are basic features of science you have written. Question is scientific method, basic research, basic features. Okay, so always read the question properly. Next, 12th, is sociology a science? Now see, this is something, just a second. Hello? नहीं, 5 minutes. Is sociology a science? Let me ask you it this. Let me tell you how are we going to approach this question. Very interesting question. Is sociology a science? What will I do? First, I will see the keywords. The question is asking, is A equal to B? Okay, so before you establish A equal to B, you have to delineate the features of both A and B. Then only you would be able to establish whether A equal to B or not. Let us first start with science. Okay, because science came first, sociology came later on. Science came first, natural science, and then came positivism on the lines of natural science. Okay, so what I'll do, the structure would be features of science or definition of science, which automatically includes feature as well. Okay, So I'll write some features, right? Then I'll talk about sociology. Which sociology I will talk about? Positivist sociology or non-positivist? First, I will talk about positivist sociology, because positivist sociology was influenced by science only. So, is sociology a science? If I ask this question to positivist scholar, what will he say? Yes or no? Yes. So yes. Is sociology a science to a positivist? Yes, sociology is a science. How? Because we talk about laws. We also talk about observation. We talk about value freedom. We talk about objectivity. Okay? We have given laws also, law of three stages, social order, social dynamics, all those nonsense. And then, with this, what I did, I established sociology is science. But the question is sociology a science? And I am establishing sociology is science. This is not the answer. This is only one part. The other should be there, in the sense you also have to tell that sociology is not science. And who will say sociology is not science? Only those people who reject positivism. And who are those people? Those are anti-positivist. Anti-positivist says that structures do not exist. This is illusion. Social order is illusion. तो scientific कहाँ से हो जाएगा? When there is no objectivity, तो law कहाँ से बन जाएंगे? There is one scholar. You can write down his name. His name is Jean-François Lyotard, a French postmodern philosopher. Let me write his name. It will help you to give a nice finish to this question. Jean-François Lyotard. He has written one book. The book name is End of Meta-narrative. End of meta-narratives. Okay. And science is a meta-narrative. In the sense, science tells us that I can explain everything. Ask me anything. Achha. You can explain everything? Yes, ask me. How was I born? Through reproduction. Okay. And how reproduction led to my birth? The whole mechanism I can explain, but I don't have time. You idiot. Okay. How Earth got developed? Through Big Bang. Okay. How Big Bang got developed? Wait, we are researching on that. Wait. We are researching. Achha. Where are the strings in strings theory? I cannot see strings. Why do you call it strings? Wait, we are researching on that. Okay, don't go into those things. What is chaos theory? What is this chaos all about? So-called chaos theory? कर रहे हैं अब, ठीक है, अब इतना भी वो मत करो. What is God particle? Why do you call it God particle? You are science over and above religion. Why do you have to take recourse to God to justify your findings? ठीक है. Science as a meta-narrative is over. Is over. What science tells you today, tomorrow science itself will reject it. And this you already know. What is science? Last May, this is the conclusion that you are going to give. Initially, sociologist was running for the tag of science, trying to find laws on objectivity in the social world, but finally, the notion of science in itself is today questioned. And therefore, instead of sociology running for the tag of science, today science in itself is running to sound more humanistic to the people. Okay. Sound more humanistic in the sense natural or real, and not bizarre and chaotic. Okay, please dictate. Dictation की बात ही नहीं है. I did not remember these things. ये अपने आप तुम्हारे अंदर आएगा. You read the handouts. I don't want you to become rote learners, and rote learning will not help. Read handouts 2 times, 3 times. You will automatically become your own sociologist. Okay, precision should be there. Questions, demand should be addressed. Conclusion you can write on your own. Okay. Okay, so next question. 13th, discuss the relevance of historical method in the study of society. Write down unit 4. Unit 4. 14th, non-positivist methodology is essential for understanding human behavior. Okay, still you write unit 4 only. You can address this question, I know, but still you have to write unit 4. 15th, how objectivity is different from value neutrality. Can you answer this question? In objectivity, you have to write value freedom or Auguste Comte, some of the laws, and why objectivity exists according to them. They were inspired from natural science also, so they obviously would have to think, yes. Value neutrality, given by which scholar? This term given by which scholar? Weber, yes. So basically, and Weber do not believe in such laws. He's a non-positive scholar. He would talk about your meanings and motives that you have attached to the larger structures, which according to positivists are evolving naturally. They are not natural evolution. They are breaking down, summing up, aggregation, disaggregation. People are attaching different kind of meaning. The institution of marriage is also falling now. People are getting delayed marriage. They are delaying their marriages. They are losing trust in the scope of marriage. Yesterday my friend got married, today he is taking divorce. Why would now I get married? I would start thinking, अरे यार इसकी कल शादी हुई, आज divorce हो गया, मैं क्यों करूं शादी अब? So people have become so much conscious. They are not simply obeying the institutions because we have to get married. बेटा marriage नहीं करोगे तो कहाँ जा? ये सब नहीं चल रहा है अब. People have become reflexive and conscious. They know what marriage is, what kind of things are happening to the institution of marriage. Okay, and therefore live-in relationships are getting popular every day, and we think society is getting corrupt, our culture is getting corrupt. Okay, Krishna and Radha were also in live-in relationship. Okay, if you are not ready to accept it, I can't help it. Okay. Now next is, in what way interpretative method is different from positivist approach? These are very same kind of questions only. Okay, so I hope unit 2 mein there is, and whenever you read previous year questions, do not go beyond 2011. Do not go beyond 2013. 2013 is where you have to stop, because 2013 the whole structure of UPSC syllabus got changed. Sociology syllabus had gotten changed after 2008, but the marking, the question, the total number of marks that is being carried by one single question also got changed 2013 onwards. So you would not find now 30 mark question or 60 mark question. All are either 10 or 20. So you do not have to go beyond 2013. 13 is the limit for you guys. Okay, 9-year questions, more than enough. Okay, unit 2 is over. Okay. Now I am telling you all the questions from unit 1 which you do not have to solve right now, because you cannot solve it right now unless you have gone through unit 4. Okay, just write down, encircle those questions which are not to be done from unit 1 right now. For example, question number 2, page number 7, question number 2. In the context of globalization, has the scope of sociology been changing in India? Not to be done right now. Okay. Next question. Question number 4. Focal point of sociology rests on interaction. Not to be done right now. Later on. Question number 6 can be done. It is quite easy. Okay, direct है ये तो question में बताने की बात है नहीं. Question number 7 not to be done right now. Changing equations or discipline of sociology not to be done right now. Okay, we'll come to these questions later on once we are done with unit 4. Next, question number 11. How did emergence of industrial society change the family life in Western Europe? This is not to be done. इसके लिए अलग यूनिट है फैमिली का, तब देखेंगे ये सब. Then question number 13. Sociology emerged in Europe, flourished to begin with on social reformist orientation in USA. Not to be done right now. Again, unit 4 you have to read first. Okay. Then compare contrast sociology with anthropology. As I told you, anthropology is something you can directly read from NCERT class 1, class 11 chapter 1. Okay. Rest is over. 2000, we do not have to go beyond 2010. 2013, sorry. Whatever we will do till 2013. Because in 2012, you see 30 mark. Now the whole concept has changed. The questions would also be changing accordingly. They would not be asking you long questions. Okay. So that's it. Now, whatever questions I have not solved here will be solved by you. What you guys are going to do now, evening today, you will get one PDF. Okay, according to different teams. Okay, like for example, team A, team B, team C, team D. One team will be doing the questions given to that team, okay, from both unit 1 and 2. Of course, they have to write individually, but they can take help of their teammates if they want to, instead of disturbing whole group. ओके, बेटर है कुछ चीज़ें आप डीएम में कर लिया करो अपने दोस्तों के साथ, ठीक है. हर एक चीज़ ग्रुप में मत डाला करो. मेरा लोड बढ़ता है क्योंकि मुझे पढ़ने पड़ते हैं. आखिर में मेरे को बोलते हैं पढ़ लो सर, क्या बोल रहे हैं. अरे मैं क्या देखूं इसमें, इनकी आपस की बातें. ओके, यूनिट बी, ओके, टीम बी, same thing will happen for and you have to write answers to these questions, and you will have to submit all these questions within maximum 2 or 3 days, okay, to the email ID students@levelupias.com. okay, all these details will be given to you in the PDF only. Don't have to worry about it. Okay, chalo. I hope there is no doubt today.